The Dead Sea in the Holy Land. Near the oasis En-Gedi, where in biblical times David hid from King Saul in the desert, here today the International Continental Scientific Drilling Program, the ICDP, is carrying out research drilling in the middle of the lake.
A dream has become reality for some 50 researchers from 8 nations. After more than 10 years of planning, efforts, preparation, frustration, the so-called Dead Sea Drilling Project was started end of November 2010. This project is being conducted under the umbrella of the International Continental Scientific Drilling Program and coordinated by the German National Research Center for Geosciences.
The extreme salt content in the Dead Sea makes swimming easy, but it's too high for fish to live in. The economy relies on salt production, the cosmetics industry, and health tourism. For geoscientists, this is a special place. Here the Arabian and African plate are moving against each other and have already traveled a distance of more than 130 kilometers.
The Dead Sea stretches along an actively deforming plate boundary and is situated in a geolaboratory. It is filled with up to 10,000 meters of sediments, and these sediment strata document the Earth history over the past hundreds of thousands of years.
10 years ago, this was a dock for boats. But every year the water level falls by more than 1 meter. Professor Ben-Avraham from the Minerva Dead Sea Research Center is head of the international research team. The Dead Sea surface is 426 meters below the present-day sea level. This is the lowest lake on Earth and endangered of drying up. Geologists have long recognized that in this rift valley, salt lakes have come and gone.
Every time lake on land is dropping down, you don't have any record. You have record only when it's covered with water. And we believe that where we drill, there were always water. So we'll have a continuous record. This is why we decided to drill in the deepest place in the lake at 300-meter water depth.
The Dead Sea Drilling Project has ambitious goals. One of these is understanding earthquakes. Equally important, the lake sediments preserve a record of past climate changes in the eastern Mediterranean. Drilling to 500 meters below the lake floor is an enormous technical challenge.
The Dead Sea have a very large drainage basin. It drains water from central Sinai to the Golan Heights. And all the rains that take place on those places affect the level of the Dead Sea. And the sediments that are being deposited in the Dead Sea are very sensitive to water level. So we can reconstruct the level. And if there were high level, it means that there was rainy period. Very low level, drought. So this is basically how we can use the sediment here to reconstruct climate.
A specially made drill rig has retrieved over 2,000 drill cores in just 20 days of operation, at times despite stormy weather. The sediment strata in these cores document more than 500,000 years of Earth history. A great success. The drilling campaign in the Dead Sea is supported by Israel's Academy of Science and Humanities, which has only recently become an ICDP member.
We expect results mainly from learning the climate change that occurred in the past, so that maybe we can deduce from it on what can be in the future. And as we know that climate change is now one of the most important issues worldwide, we think that learning from the past is very important.
Scientists from the Geo Research Center in Potsdam are responsible for logging operations. This means they carry out measurements in the borehole and precisely locate the original position of each piece of core taken out.
This is for identification of different sediments that are down there. Salt layers and clay, basically these two systems, but of course also some others, intercalations of these. And this can be identified like this.
In the field laboratory at the En-Gedi kibbutz, the drill cores are stored and examined, and first investigations are made.
Here we are measuring the magnetic susceptibility of the sediment with this sensor. We can see the layers of salt and mud, and the magnetic susceptibility will be different for the salt layer and for those of the mud. So for instance, in salt it will be lower, in mud it may be higher. In the geobiology, we are basically measuring the biological activity of bacteria and archaea in the sediment itself, and also cell counting and DNA extraction.
The core material is carefully labeled and packed for transport, and ready for detailed studies at the German Research Center for Geosciences in Potsdam. Near Masada, where King Herod fought against the Romans, deposits of the fossil lake Lizan can be seen on land. These are similar to the sediment strata being drilled below the present Dead Sea.
In the sediment, you will see are deposited year by year, like a ring of trees, and they are deposited very horizontal. Occasionally, we see disturbances. And these disturbances are caused by earthquakes. And by mapping those earthquakes, we can have a complete record of the earthquake activities that took place in this region. There were periods here in the Holy Land that earthquakes came together, ba 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 bam, and then long quiet, and then ba 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 bam. And this is very worried because the 20th century was very quiet, and we're afraid that if things start, it will be in sequence.
The drillers work night and day, and with each new core that comes up from the depth, the geoscientists are one step closer to achieving their goals.
In Jesus' time was a mighty earthquake in the Holy Land. We know this from the writer Josephus Flavius. We can see this earthquake 2,000 years ago in the sediment. So we can connect climatic event, seismological event, and any major disaster. It's like a very, very detailed archive. It's like a book.
The cores have arrived safely in Potsdam, and the Dead Sea core opening party can start. The cores are split and prepared for analysis with modern scanner technique. Now they are ready for distribution to participating laboratories worldwide for scientific investigation with cutting-edge technologies. The initial results are very promising.
We have really the first fascinating results. Most important for us is that we know that we have really two climatic cycles, so two glacials and two interglacial periods, so we have a long record back in time. And the second point is that we found that there's a lot of event-controlled sedimentation. So we have flood events, storm events, but also earthquake events. And we are quite sure that we can construct long time series of extreme events in the past times, and also changes in the frequency of these events.
The research drilling in the Dead Sea is another success story for the ICDP. Scientists from around the world will have access to samples and new data to better understand climate change, earthquake risk, and human history of the Eastern Mediterranean and here in the Holy Land.